changing of all the world. So thanks for taking a minute out.
Of course, I'm excited to be here, Joe.
Me too. So let's get into the story. And before we do, I want to know first and foremost with the pandemic, it was a real shift for all of us. 4 years ago, we didn't know how we were going to get out and how it was going to affect us. How did you get through that time period and how did it change the way that you live now?
Wow, it changed absolutely everything. I mean, it was that shift point to where I grew up in a employee mentality family. To us, work was the most important thing. Like you could not miss work, even if you were super sick, you had to go to work. It was very important for us to have a boss, to respect the boss, respect the work, and do our best job with it, right? And when the pandemic hit, I was in here in Barcelona. It was super harsh. Like they didn't let us go out of the house for 58 days. 58 days straight, we couldn't go out of the house. And we live in a little apartment. And I was one of the only people that could go out to work because I was considered essential because I was a car mechanic, right? But we had a newborn, not newborn, but like one-ish and a 6 year old. And every day it was horrible. Every day when I went to work for 58 days, my wife cried and pleaded me, please don't go to work. Please stay with me. She had a horrible experience, right? We live in a little apartment. Like we have a little balcony. We took the kids out to the balcony so they could get some sun, right? And that to me broke my heart and divided my heart into my employee mentality that my family had raised me upon and my family who really needed me, right? So I was out of the house for like 9 hours a day, came back, everything was chaos. I mean, it was just a huge mind shift into wait a minute, something has to change. It felt like something was completely wrong, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Like, and then I had another following that up. It was like then my job didn't give me the enough money to keep up with my expenses. Like every month we had to take out $100 from the savings account, right? And you only have so much money saved. So I made my math and I'm like, uh-oh, I think we only have like so many more months to live at the level we're at. And we're not big spenders in it or anything. So then I was trying to build learning guitar secrets at that time to bring a little bit more income, but it got to a point it was so stressful. I've always been an employee, always did what I was told, and now I'm trying to build a business, right? So I had to learn all these new skills, market it, try to sell it, and it was hyper stressful. Like I was hiding in the bathroom in the shop trying to take notes to a podcast I was listening to and stuff like that, right? So I decided, hey, I think if I can get a month, leave my house, leave my family again, build the business, and then come back to my job, I think I can make it work. So I went to my boss. I don't want to speak back bad of him because he had a business to run and he's been very good to me. But I asked him if I could leave the job for a month. Like I'll leave for a month and I'll come back. No problem. And he's like, no. I'm like, what do you mean no? He's like, you can't do that. And even if you did, you would have to pay me $3,000, 3,000 euros. I'm like, what are you talking about, right? This makes no sense. He's like, yeah, I got to pay for your expenses, taxes, blah, 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 blah. And that was the second shift after that pandemic that was like, okay, I got to build something where I'm in charge and where time is on my side. I can decide where I am and who I want to be with. So, yeah.
So let's get to the essence of what you do now in
Mm-hmm.
2024 for a living. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of grade school kids, third graders. It's career day. And one of the kids
Yeah.
says, hey, what do you do for a living? How do you answer him?
Yeah. I teach beginner guitarists how to play the guitar, how to play music with the guitar, if I would say.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
Ah, that's a good question. Third grade, what is it, like 9 years old?
Yeah.
Probably an astronaut.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always liked spaceships and space and stuff like that.
So what about music? How did you get into the guitar? How did music become this pursuit and ultimately your job?
Hmm. So I grew up in a very musical family. My father and uncle played the guitar. My grandfather used to sing. And I always saw it at home. Music was always playing in the car at home. And we used to gather around in family parties, and everyone took their guitars out or whatever. We got this and banged it. It was just music all around. And those memories are precious. I mean, those are some of the best memories I have. Those
Yeah.
family parties. Friends came in, everybody knew the songs. We even wrote our own songs. It was just a blast.
So, who were musical influences, or what was the first concert you ever saw that blew you away, that solidified your love of
Mm,
music?
that's a great question. The first concert I saw was a Spanish group called Mecano. You should check them out because
Okay.
they're you might not like the music, very poppy, 80-ish, 90-ish, but they're extremely good performers and extremely good musicians. Like they played anything.
Yeah.
And I remember, I still remember that concert. We were sitting back row in the Palau Sant Jordi here in Barcelona, really big stadium. And I remember seeing her move. She's a female singer, and the energy she had, and the way to connect with the audience. It was just amazing. And then my father introduced me to Woodstock, Jimi Hendrix, all that good stuff. And then
Yeah.
I was completely sold. I'm like, yep, I'm in.
That's it. You're in. So, who's been a hero for you? Who's been an inspiration for you in your life?
um, so many people. Jimi Hendrix was one, of course, after I saw his concerts on VHS and all that. But a recent hero of mine is a guy called Shane Sams. Shane Sams is the owner and founder of Flipped Lifestyle, and he teaches people how to do a living online, right, with the talents they already have. And his story is very much like mine, where when he shares it, he got called. He figured out that his very young son was getting locked up in the bathroom at daycare. And he's like, oh my God, I got to go and rescue him. And then he went to his boss. He was a school teacher. And he's like, dude, like I got to go and rescue my kid. And the principal said no. His boss said no, you can't do that. You got to wait till you end your shift, and then you can go. And that was his inflection point, kind of like mine with the pandemic. And after asking my boss for that 1 month off, where he went like, nobody's gonna take my time ever again. Like I'm gonna build my own thing, and I'm gonna bring my own income, and I'm gonna be essentially free.
So, if you could meet one person alive on the planet right now, whether it's a musician or somebody that you find inspirational that would help you on your entrepreneurial journey, who would you love to meet and spend some time with?
Hmm. I think one person that comes to mind is Lana Del Rey. You know Lana Del Rey?
Yeah.
She like the lyrics she talks about really don't resonate with me, right? She's very much about the posh and about the Hollywood and all that, but her way of articulating every phrase, her way of making a song that is essentially verse, chorus, bridge, right? Those are all her songs. But the inflections on the voice, the quality, the feeling, the passion she puts into every single word she sings, to me is like I just put my headphones on and I'm like transported to another universe. And that's something I teach my beginners is how to recreate a movie with every song you play. Like this, if you play a song completely flat, you'll get away with one song, right? You
Yeah.
play it for your family, you'll get away from one song. Everyone's like clapping, yay, you did it. But you play the same monotone the second song, and everyone's like, oh man, how much is this gonna last? But if you can create a story, if you can do inflections where there's a plot, there's a highlight, there's all the roller coaster effect, I call it, then you really grab people's attention, and you create you basically create a movie around what you're playing.
Yeah. So, what is your inspiration to do this work that you do? Being somebody that teaches other people to pick up an instrument that is ultimately going to change their lives. but you also have
Mm.
to evolve as a human being yourself and take care of your needs. What is that collective gas in your tank every day to wake up and to do the work and to evolve as a human being?
That's a great question, Joe. I used to set my alarm at 5 o'clock after reading the 5 a.m. Club or whatever that book is, which is a great book, completely recommended. But now it's 4 o'clock in the morning and I'm already, right? Um, I want to talk first about my students. Like everything, music is a language and music is a way to communicate, but not only that, a way to create memories for the ones you love, around the ones you love, right? And playing music is a way to gather everyone around, have fun, and create those meaningful memories, right? So, for example, I had a student that 3 months into playing the guitar with me, she wrote a song for her grandchildren. That's family legacy right there, right?
Yeah,
That's a song, and she recorded it. We recorded it together. I helped her do it. That song is going to live beyond her,
yeah.
right? So one thing that drives me every morning, apart from marketing and trying to build an income where I can be wherever I want and do whatever I want, is knowing that it's starting to get a little. I'm a little bit worried about it because I obsess a little bit about it, but knowing that if I don't make a post today, if I don't make an offer today, if I don't reach out to someone today that can be helped, those things are never going to happen, right? So it's just, again, it's a little bit, it's starting to worry me because waking up at 4 in the morning every morning, my wife says it's not very sane. But anyway, that's what I do.
So when when did you get comfortable with this new journey? I mean, obviously, and I understand myself, when you've been a worker your whole life, it's ingrained in your DNA. It's a part of who you are. And becoming an entrepreneur is a whole other thing. It's jumping into a whole different set of waters. When did you get comfortable? When did you say, okay, this is something that I probably should have done years ago, or I feel so good about it now. Why didn't I do this before? When did that comfort level settle into you?
Um, I can't tell you exactly when, but I can tell you when I made the decision and what triggered it. I heard a podcast by Dan Kennedy, I believe, and he was talking about the movie Batman, where I don't know if you've seen it, where he gets um buried in a dungeon, and the only way to get out is making like a huge leap across two bricks, right?
Yeah,
And everyone dies, and everyone ties a rope just in case they fall,
yeah,
right? Well, that rope is so thick that it's actually baggage that's holding you back. You will never be able to make that leap until you let go of the rope
yeah.
and you're like, okay, it's all or nothing. I'm gonna do this, right? And I remember hearing that podcast. I still get goosebumps, man. Hearing that podcast and literally like sobbing, like, oh my God, I was so scared coming from an employee mentality to make the leap. Once I did it, it was like, I'm all in, let's go. I still remember also my wife, I told her, she was like, okay, if this doesn't work, she was really scared too. If this doesn't work, what job are you going to get? And I'm like, you don't understand. You don't understand, Deanna. If this doesn't work, I'm doing something else. I'm never going back to working for anyone. No one is going to control my time. And I remember the panic in her eyes, like, oh no, he's there, you know? And I mean, being an entrepreneur with family and all that, there's so much we can talk about
Yeah.
how one feels, how the other one feels, how to try to blend it together. But yeah, it's been hard.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 18-year-old version of you, and you could give
Mm.
that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led, the wisdom you've gained along the way. What advice would you impart on that younger version of you?
Start sooner.
Yeah,
And always create something, like even if you're working for somebody else, have a piece of it for yourself too. Like for example, I built one thing. I realized when I got out of the shop, I was super heavily invested. Like I went my first years, I went to work at 8, got out of work at 12. at night. So I spent my entire day there, right? But I never realized that I was building something for somebody else. That was not mine. I never had a piece of that shop, or I was always like they could always fire me, right? So if you do something, half a piece of it, that's yours.
Yeah.
I would I would say that.
So everyone that hears about people that give guitar lessons,
Hmm.
their mind kind of swims in this unlimited amount of things that can happen and the dreams that you have of why you do it. So I'm curious, if you have a guitar next to you, play me the first thing that you ever learned on the guitar.
I don't need the guitar. I can sing it to you.
Okay.
Da 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 dun da 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 dun dun da da. That Nirvana riff.
Ah,
Everyone starts there.
wow. See, mine was when I was a kid, it was Smoke on the Water.
Oh, also, it's two. It's Smoke in the
Yes.
Water and the Nirvana riff.
I didn't realize the Nirvana one. I didn't realize that was it. That's wild. That makes
Yep.
sense. Cool.
Yep.
So, of everything that you've done in your life, of all the advice that you've gotten, what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Hmm. The best advice that I've ever gotten. I'm not ready for this question, but I can give you one that I think is really useful for anyone starting something,
Sure.
and it's having a clear outcome. So I don't know if you ever thought about this, Joe, but to me, words are very important because they define things in your head, right? So when you have an idea, I think of it as a cloud, right? And it's blurry, you don't really know. But once you define it with words, now it becomes tangible, right? So the word goal to me has always never really resonated because it's something in the future, my goal, it's kind of lame. It's kind of like, eh. But if you're thinking of an outcome, then it's like, oh, now I can take actions. Wait a minute, I lost you. Still there?
Yep. Yep. I'm good.
Uh, Now I can take actions toward that outcome. So I teach my students a framework, which is defining your outcome. I want to play 3 songs by Christmas, or I want to play the solo to Stairway to Heaven, whatever it is, right? And then the first step of this framework is breaking your beliefs, your false beliefs. Like it could be, I have arthritis. I'm too old to learn. I've heard this so many times. I remember when I was first starting out to play the guitar, I was still playing campfire songs, and it was like a year in, right? And I go to a friend's. He had like a practice studio, and there was only like a couch, a guitar, and a ashtray full of buds. 16 years old or 15 years old, and we're just like jamming along, playing some tunes, and I was like, what would be cool? What would be amazing? Playing the solo to Stairway to Heaven. No, playing Stairway to Heaven, I told him. And he's like, I can play it. And he had started like the same time. And I'm like, in your dreams, you can play Stairway to Heaven. And then the most amazing thing happened, Joe. He played it,
Wow.
note per note, the entire song. And I'm like, that completely broke my false belief that it took years to be able to do that. Only God, guitar gods could do that, right?
Yeah.
So breaking your false beliefs is a big one for me. Find someone that has already done what you're doing so it can break your belief of, oh, I can also do this, right? And then having like a super clear path for the outcome that you want. They say anything you want to achieve in life, any outcome, not goal, any outcome is only 50 steps away. You just got to follow them in a straight line, right? The problem is, and you know this as a musician, is like you start with guitar and then you're like, okay, you got to learn your open chords and then you got to learn a strumming pattern and you're 3 steps in and then you're like, oh, what's caged? You watch a YouTube video, right? And there, cage is the thing. So you deviate and you start going down another path, you start going up, right? And then you find out about triads, and then you go backwards, and then you're like, oh, my chord changes are not that great, and then you go down, and you end up in a spiral loop, maybe taking instead of 50 steps, 150 steps, right? but you're very close to where you started instead of being at the top of the mountain where you want to be, right?
Yeah.
So finding a mentor that has a framework, that has a method that you trust, and following that method is essential, which is step three in the framework, which is do not know. So there's a big difference, and you've studied a lot and you've interviewed a lot of people. A big difference in knowing something and doing something, right? If you know it, you go through a book, and this happens with a lot of books. The book is a framework of someone teaching something, right? Well, maybe not fiction books, but like self-improvement books, whatever you want to learn, marketing books, guitar books. It's a method, right? It's a framework. And then what do? You start flipping through the pages. You're like, wow, that's awesome. You finish chapter one, you know all this stuff, but then what happens? Are you gonna put the book down and go and do the thing? No. That requires a ton of willpower, right?
Yeah.
You're not gonna do that. What are you gonna do? Keep consuming the book. Chapter two, ooh, that's awesome, right?
Yeah.
Or lesson two in the course or whatever it is. Oh, that's awesome. Then you're addicted. Chapter three, lesson three, right? Lesson four, lesson five. But then you never do anything and you can apply it and you don't really understand it. And then you're 10 chapters into the book and you're so far away from chapter one that you can't do any of the chapters. Anything that they explained, you can do.
Yeah.
But if you come back to chapter one, and when the chapter one finishes, you do everything of chapter one, then you can move on to chapter two, and that's already with you. You
Yeah.
already understand it. You can already apply it, right? That's why in my courses, I try to teach something for 5 minutes, but then the second part of the lesson, the video doesn't, it's not cut off, is let's do it together. I grab
Yeah.
my guitar. I teach you a strumming pattern, whatever it is, a new chord, whatever it is, right? And then I play for 5 minutes with a metronome or a backing track. I mute my guitar, but you can still hear the backing track, right? That way, you don't have to skip to or you don't have to stop the lesson, require all your willpower. I'm going to practice what then just preached, and do it yourself. No, you're doing it with me. You're doing it together. I think that's something a lot of books and a lot of online courses are lacking.
Yeah.
Implementation part of what you know, because then you know a lot of stuff, but you can't do anything. If that makes sense, Joe.
Yeah. Totally makes sense. So, of everything that you've done in your life up to this point and accomplished and evolved into, what are you the proudest of?
I think gaining my freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my goal is my outcome is to be able to do what I want when I want with whoever I want for as long as I want. Like how many times I gotta go back to work. I gotta go, I gotta send an email, right? I gotta go because whatever it is. So being able to create that freedom where, hey, I want to be here because there's a meeting over here, or there's a mastermind over here, or I want to go and see my friend in Argentina because I haven't seen him in 3 years and I want to jam with him, or whatever it is. I'm building towards that.
So, at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you family, friends, all of your students, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
That's a great question. I would say, first of all, I'm a husband. I love my wife above anything and anyone. That's my highest priority. Second one, I would say a father. Love my children. Want to build a life with them, around them, so they can be independent and don't need me. Third, I would say, third are both a marketer and a guitar coach,
Yeah.
right? They go hand in hand. So yeah, those would be my three.
If we get off this call and you get into a time machine, it pulls up in front of your house. You can go in the history of music and see one guitar god or hero
Ooh,
or someone that you look up to. Where are you going? What concert are you going to?
Jimi Hendrix,
All right.
Woodstock, 69. Yeah.
That's it.
Villanova Junction. That's it.
I went to his grave in Seattle when I went up there in the mid
Oh,
90s. I went up
really?
it was because the whole grunge thing was happening. I was in my mid 20s and I went up there and bought Pearl Jam bootleg albums and went to his gravesite and did all that stuff. But I saw an interview the other day with Paul
Mhm.
McCartney, and they were
Yeah.
asking him like who he loved the most. And I didn't realize it was Hendrix. He was blown away. They were freaked out by him. Like,
Yeah.
man, there's
I
this
heard
young guy in
I
America,
heard yeah, I
a
heard the
lefty.
story where they saw him playing next to Clapton. Do you know
Yeah,
that story?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he completely like he played Killer Floor, which Clapton did not play because it was too difficult.
Uh-huh.
And he plugged into Jack Bruce's amp, bass amp,
Yeah.
blew everyone away. And then I saw an interview with Chas Chandler, I believe it was the manager of the Animals, right? The
Yeah.
basis of the Animals, and 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 Eric Clapton was like off stage, like trying to smoke a cigarette, and Chaz is like, "Is he really that good?" And he's like, "Why did you bring him here?" You
Yeah.
know, like,
That's wild, man. So if anyone out there wants to hire you, they want to reach out, learn more about what you're doing, any of the guitar guru knowledge you have, where how do they do that?
guitar guru knowledge. That's great. And you can download this little book. It's the Beginner Guitarist Playbook for free. If you go to learntheguitarsecrets.com/free, you'll get it for free. And it's gotten over 100,000 downloads. And it'll fill in all those little gaps. Those 50 steps, the steps you're missing are in here. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. I got on a personal note, I've been trying it. So there's a part of me that wants to learn the guitar. I've gotten
Mm-hmm.
one and I've tried and I've just never gone through with it. So what I'm going to try to do with my life right now, because because being a radio guy, I've delved into so many things that are difficult. I really kind of want music to be a mystery, but I also don't think I could be like, I didn't learn how to play an instrument. I mean, I know how to play the drums a little
Oh,
bit, but if I could really
yeah.
take this on, so I may revisit with you and say, hey, this is what's going on. So I'm inspired. I'm ready to go.
You're completely right about the mystery. Once you know things and apply them, they lose a little bit of the magic sense, right? But if you know drums, Joe, you've got 80% of guitar. Music is
Right.
driven by rhythm, man.
I was going to ask you at one point for someone out there that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of floundered and hasn't gotten it, what advice would you give? And you just did it. You totally just did it right there. So that's
Cool.
perfect. That's a great way to
Cool.
wrap everything up. This has been so
Yep.
good, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's
Thank
so great to run into you. Send my love to Spain, man.
Yeah, same here. Reach out to me if you ever want to play guitar. I'll get you playing. You know, I've got a method that gets you playing songs, like not Twinkle Twinkle,
Right.
right? Like songs, like I don't know, the Joker, whatever song, right?
Yeah.
In under an hour,
Okay.
strumming through songs, not playing beep 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 beep, beep,
Yeah.
like strumming through songs in under an hour. So yeah, that'd be great.
I will totally do it, man. This has been so good. Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking time out. Best of luck with everything.
I appreciate you, Joe. Thank you.
Cheers. Take care.